So Energy Converter and Shards of Galanor no longer work effectively to produce infinite fast supers. What a disappointment. Well guys, in this one I have a slight workaround to effectively generate enough super energy to say we can get fairly quick supers for our Blade Barrage. Now this isn't going to be as effective as it once was pre-Shardy nerf, but it's what we got. So with this build, you'll get some consistency with fast supers, have infinite health, never ending regeneration, get some overload stunning melees. I say some because half the time some overloads just think they're too cool to be stunned, but there are a few other benefits, and this is a mixed Shards of Galanor build to use in all types of content. So guys, before we start, if you're looking to get your hands on some cheap silver for Destiny 2, why not go check out Awaya and use my code DIVIDE at checkout for a discount. Link below. Now as always, rate, comment, sub and share, and roll that intro. Now if you're a hunter main, comment below right now what you think of Middletree Shards of Galanor in Season 15. Would you use it? Will you use it? And where would you use it? But guys, this is build number 11 to the new Season 15 class build series, so if you like what you see here, you might like some of my other builds. Full playlist link below for more. So with this build, you'll be running around effectively getting fast supers, and depending on the activity you're doing and the setup you're running, will determine the speed of gaining that super. But as I mentioned, this is a mixed build optimized for all types of content, so it's not going to be 100% dedicated to maximizing super gains, although it should do a fairly good job of it anyway. But now the way you would use this build is first get a kill using your melee ability. This will activate playing with fire while spawning a solar elemental well, and picking up that well will grant the healing regeneration buff, grant you melee energy, as well as giving you super energy. Not to mention that using your melee on adds will also grant super energy, and with each melee kill you'll increase the stack of playing with fire up to ×3, and therefore allowing you to spam those melee abilities for more elemental wells and super energy from both the wells and the melee kills. Now when you don't have an ability, you'll be using your grenade launcher instead. Anyhow, once you've got your super, use it on tough adds and bosses to regain up to 50% of that energy straight back, and then just top it off with a combination of melee kills and picking up those wells. There are a ton of different ways you can use this build with different mods, weapons and exotics, and I'll point out a few as we go along, but if you want to speed things up even further, you can use a bad juju to get the super energy crazy fast, but this is only recommended in easier activities. As we're optimising this build for usage in endgame, we'll be adjusting the build to the current meta weapons available to us for Season of the Lost, using the new top tier seasonal mods currently. So speaking of that loadout, the very first thing you're going to want is a good kinetic weapon to stun champions. This could be an auto rifle for anti-barriers, a bow for overloads, or a pulse rifle for unstoppables. For that energy weapon, you want to have a weapon that can deal explosive damage. This doesn't need to be solar, but anything that can cause explosive DPS such as a salvager's salvo, a sunshot, a weapon that has dragonfly or firefly, and all those kind of things. They'll all do the same trick, but these will be your ad clearing and secondary way to generate elemental wells, because our aim is to get as much super energy as possible while still maintaining a fairly good loadout and setup to keep us alive in the end game. So going with a salvager's salvo is perfect to deal with those higher level enemies. Now for that heavy weapon, as fusion rifles with particle deconstruction are the current meta this season, I'll be basing this build around a usage of 1k, or 1000 voices, and this will be our DPS weapon on bosses, but if you don't have this, a good alternative is Sleeper Simulant, but other good DPS weapons for bosses are things like a Wardcliff Coil, Deathbringer, Anarchy is still acceptable despite nerfs, and the Lament Sword. All are great exotics to use in the endgame, but for this build, we'll be using 1k. Although the heavy weapon is not essential to the build, so if you can't use it, it's completely fine and it will not affect the build in any way. Now for the subclass, we are a Middletree Solar Gunslinger Blade Barrage, and yes, the last time I made a build on this thing, I actually called it Shards of Galanor and the Exotic Blade Barrage, but not this time. So throw this on, as it does come with Knife Trick, where you throw a fan of flame and knives that burns targets on hit, and then as those enemies burn, your dodge recharges faster, and when you kill those burning targets, you'll get playing with fire, which stacks up to 3 times and will recharge the knife ability more quickly. I'm not gonna lie, this will be difficult to use in things like a Master or Grandmaster Nightfall, and might not even be possible, which is why we have an alternative to generating additional wells, so we won't specifically be relying on the melee ability kills, and we'll get to that shortly. But lastly for the subclass, throw in a Gambler's Dodge, so you can use that dodge to get your melee straight back for the second throw to start the buff of playing with fire, as the first 1 or 2 kills will recharge the abilities slower, so this will just help trigger that faster regen earlier. Moving on though, the exotic, we're of course using Shards of Galanor, but your alternative is actually Radiant Dance Machines. Although it's not super effective like it once was, and you will have to make slight adjustments, which we will get to shortly. But main setup number 1, we're going with Shards of Galanor. More on this soon, but for those elemental well mods, the things you'll want are firstly, melee well maker. This will spawn elemental wells matching our subclass when we kill enemies with powered melee abilities. And now you can get these mods from vendors at the helm. But the next mod you want is explosive well maker, where rapidly defeating combatants with explosive damage spawns a solar elemental well. This can be an explosive weapon, a chain reaction weapon, or even a stasis weapon that freezes enemies, as shattering those targets will count as explosive kills, so it doesn't need to be solar weapons. This is what you want to use for end game rather than the melee one, but for being effective in all activities, we're going to be running a combination of both. Next though, you want Elemental Light to spawn another well when you kill adds with your super, along with Well of Life to give you that health regeneration when picking up those solar wells. Great for harder content, but your alternative to this mod is Well of Potency. And speaking of that mod, this is the last elemental well mod you'll want to slot on. Don't take my word on this, but I believe they do stack. So running 2 may be better than 1, but I couldn't notice a major difference, which is why I just went with Well of Life as well as Well of Potency, and not 2 of Well of Potencies. You could even use a Font of Wisdom if you wanted, but you will want Well of Potency on at least 1 piece of armor. Now for the normal mods, we're going with 2 hands-on for bonus super energy on melee kills, as this will be our main source for getting super energy in easier activities. But with those generated wells from this, picking those up will give us even more, so you're getting multiple benefits from that melee and wells that you create. For the Gauntlets we have Shards of Galanor, and this will give us up to 50% of our super energy straight back when getting kills and hits with our Blade Barrage after the super ends. Great exotic, but if you don't have this, you can use Energy Converter instead in any piece of armor, but it will take up all of your mod slots. But with this exotic, you want your champion mods that you need, and you don't have to use Impact Induction, so you can take this out if you need to. But moving into the chest, we have Double Fusion Reserve mods for a heavy weapon, as this is going to be our main source for DPS, so you don't really want to run out. Then for the legs we have Absolution for reduced ability cooldowns, along with our Fusion Scavenger mod, and of course adjust this mod with your reserve mod to suit the heavy weapon that you're using. So if you're not using 1k, you wouldn't use Fusion Rifle Scavenger. Then lastly for the class we have Thermoclastic Strike, which we'll use to stun overload champions when we need to. Just don't miss, or you're going to have issues. But alongside this, we have Withering Heat to weaken those champions using our solar abilities. Now if you're in a team, swap this and Elemental Light out for a Particle Deconstruction mod, as this will weaken all enemies using fusions, the current go-to meta this season. And on top of this, just an extra mod suggestion for you to use is this mod here, where defeating enemies with solar melees will create an Orb of Power. This is currently disabled as of making this video, but it could be worth using when it does become available. So the stat you'll want to max out is Strength, so you can get that melee back as quick as possible, as the build is focused around the usage of our melee to generate additional super energy, but intellect is your secondary stat you want to max out, as we are a super build as well. This here is the artifact setup currently, but now the last thing I wanted to go over is the alternative setup, which is using Radiant Dance Machines, or any exotic really, but this will be an alternative way to get in a good amount of super energy quickly. So the mods you want to use if you don't have Shards of Galanor are Supercharged and Charged Up. These two will allow you to hold a total of 5 stacks of Charger Light, and then you'll use either Melee Wellmaker or Explosive Wellmaker, whichever you prefer, to create those solar elemental wells, along with Elemental Charge to become Charger Light when picking up those wells generated. And finally, you'll finish off the last mod with Energy Converter to get the first 50% of your super straight back when using your grenade after using your super, and this needs to be slotted into Void Armor. You'll want to keep your normal mods we went through earlier, but you can use Dynamo to reduce the super cooldown when dodging near enemies, and rapidly dodging should help get it faster, but I believe they nerfed this so it may not be as effective anymore. So what you could do instead is dodge to get your melee straight back and keep spamming those abilities a little bit quicker than you would usually. So overall I do like this build, and of course it's not as effective as it once was last season, where you could throw an Energy Converter grenade right before your Shards of Galanor, gives you that super energy to top it off, but it's still definitely a good build to use if you want somewhat faster supers than normal, but it's not going to be 100% perfect. And if you guys know any better ways to make this build more effective, do leave your thoughts, feedback and ideas down below, because I'd love to hear how this build can be improved and optimized further. But guys, that is all for this one, and next you should go check out the playlist as always for more awesome top fun builds to use in Destiny 2 Season 15 in 2021. For now, try this new updated Shards of Galanor Blade Barrage Hunter build and let me know how it performs, and I'll catch you all very soon for the next video. Stay tuned.